Several years ago, I was going through I just had a lot of challenges in my life, and life was just really hard for me. And so I took his old mission letters out. Gosh, I'm probably gonna cry.
As the cold winds of winter sweep in, there's nothing like the warmth of a comforting cup to help you slow down and unwind. This is the season. Let Postum be your cozy companion. Made from roasted grains, Postum is caffeine free and rich with a smooth roasted flavor. It's the perfect drink for those quiet, chilly mornings. Whether you're curled up with a good book, sharing a laugh with loved ones, or simply watching the snow fall outside, a cup of Postum is the moment you have been waiting for.
Welcome to This Week in Mormons, the Twim Taffy edition. This is your host, Tiffany Hales, and today I am here with my friend whom you all are going to recognize, and you will especially recognize her voice because it's lovely, Georgia Travers from our formerly our international edition. Georgia, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I guess you thought you got rid of me, but you didn't. I'm back again so soon, hey?
I know. Well, I was looking for somebody to record with, and you and I did a recording, I think last fall, we
hmm
recorded together, and I absolutely enjoyed it. And we actually got some really good listener feedback that they enjoyed the two of us together. And so, last week I hadn't lined up a co-host yet for this week, and I reached out to you, and you were so kind to say yes, you would come on and record with me. So thank you very much.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. And we're friends now. I'm on the
We
Taffy
are.
edition. You're on my Christmas card list. You got my
I
Christmas
know.
card this year.
I felt so honored when I got your Christmas card. I'm like, oh, I'm in the inner circle. I got the Travers Christmas card.
Definitely, definitely.
And it was so fun to see the pictures of your family and your cute little children and just delightful.
Yeah, I'm glad you liked it.
So tell me what has been going on in your life over in jolly old England.
A lot at all, to be honest. I have absolutely nothing to report on that is interesting. What about yourself?
Oh my gosh. I have had a day today. So
Tell
last
me about
night
it.
well, you've had a day because you've been single parenting today. But last night I got home. I had gone to the ballet with some friends last night. And it was probably 9:30, 10 o'clock when I got home. And it was just kind of starting to rain, sleet, snow. And it just was kind of expected to really rain throughout the night, not that much. And we woke up this morning with literally probably 5 inches of snow on the ground, heavy, wet snow. School was canceled. Roads were a mess. And so
Yeah.
we've been trying to dig ourselves out of all of that this morning. So I put my children to work. I made my son go over and do the neighbor's driveway, and I said, "I'll take you to McDonald's for a bundle deal if you do the neighbor's driveway." I am not
Bribery.
above exactly. I am not above bribery in any way, shape, or form. Anyway, so we're a little dug out, but it's just kind of been a crazy day because this is kind of not how I planned that my day would go. And in between all of this, between directing my children, I'm trying to manage a few work projects and again take some time off because I've built up a bunch of comp time to be able to do things like record during a weekday. And so it's just kind of been, it's not, since I woke up this morning, life has not gone how I anticipated it. But what are you going to do?
You know what? We just roll with it, don't we?
Exactly.
Life is full of surprises. We just go with it.
Exactly. Well, I have a couple of church related questions that I want to know what you all are doing over in on the other side of the pond, so to speak, just based on some things that have happened in my life lately with church. So recently, apparently there is a calling. And I don't know if this is a recent change or if it's just recently that we are starting to kind of focus on that in my area. It's called a disability specialist. Do you have anything like that over in your neck of the woods?
You know what? We don't, but it's fascinating that you mention it because I had actually heard of it as well and had the same question for my stake. Do we have a disability specialist?
Uh-huh.
And prior to this conversation, I sought the answer, which is no, we do
Yeah.
not. However, I think it's really important that we should, because I think there's probably a lot of things that we're missing at church that we should probably be more mindful of and providing certain people with. What do you think?
Yes. Well, and that's how it came up is we have a stake disability specialist, but they're wanting to put a disability specialist in each ward. And my
Okay.
understanding of what this calling would be is this calling would be to aid anybody in the ward, whether they have a physical disability or a mental or emotional disability, to help find strategic solutions that help address the needs of that particular member so that they can fully engage in the ward and in the gospel. Love the idea. I think it's perfect in theory. One of the discussions that I was having with somebody recently was the church has called it a disability specialist, but does that carry a negative connotation? If I am reaching out to you and I'm saying, "Hey, I'm your ward disability specialist, is there something I can help you with?" Or, go see the disability specialist, is that going to make the person on the receiving end say, "Oh, I'm not disabled. I don't need that." Is there a better term that we could use for that calling? And I'm just curious, do you think that has the potential to maybe carry a negative connotation?
I hadn't thought about that perspective actually, but now you mention it, yes, probably. Maybe a better name would be inclusion specialist or,
Yeah.
something along that vein. And my question right back to you is, should that person have any formal training? Should they be kind of an occupational therapist or something like that? Because I feel like if somebody asked me to do that calling, I would not even know where to begin. So
Yeah.
is it going to be an effective calling if we're not putting the right people in place to be able to deal with the demands that the calling would bring?
Yeah. Yeah. And and thinking of it just in terms of things that can arise on a ward level. um I was thinking in terms of a name. I like inclusion, but I was also thinking a resource specialist, because
Mm,
really, I think what you're doing is I think you are finding resources for these individuals that help these individuals. If you have somebody who is particularly hard of hearing, and maybe they're okay in hearing in the chapel because we've got the microphone in the chapel, but you get into a classroom setting like Sunday school or Relief Society, and maybe they need the teacher to use a microphone there. And what does that look like? Does that look like a little clip-on microphone? Does that look like standing at the pulpit in the Relief Society room? Or you've got we have one particular sister in our ward that has Meniere's disease, which is an inner ear disease that causes a lot of dizziness. And so she kind of has to, she calls it grounding herself. And so she needs to be like near a wall or something physical, because that physical object helps her to ground herself. And she also has to be aware of loud, very loud noise, not loud noises, but just like your typical classroom before something starts and there's lots of noise going on. There's certain things that she knows triggers her. And so, again, we've tried to find workaround solutions. Or there was even a discussion that, if you had a child in primary that had, ADD, having someone assigned to that child or helping the teacher to help that child focus. But yeah, if you're untrained, I wouldn't really know how to effectively deal with a child with ADD. So I don't know. Maybe it kind of depends on, what the need is, and maybe the resource or disability specialist identifies the need and then works to find a way to you know either it's a need that they can figure out, or this is above my pay grade, I need to go ask somebody else. I don't know, but I like the idea of it. Of it. I'm just not so sure about the name of it.
Yeah, and I think there are quite a few things at church where I think, why have you named it that? My big one is ministering interviews. I just think it is the
Mm,
most corporate thing they have ever
yes.
come up with. A ministering interview. Please, can we start calling it something else? Can we call it a conversation instead? It should not be an interview, in my opinion, but maybe we can
Ex-
talk a little bit about that later.
I know we have an article on that I specifically pulled
Mm.
that I thought would be great to discuss. But yeah, so it's an interesting discussion, and I hope that this kind of gets our twin listeners thinking and maybe giving us any feedback or comments about, is your ward doing this? How are they doing it? Because this is something relatively new that we're trying to implement and trying to figure out the most effective way to implement it to help those people in our ward, but yet not make them feel like they're being singled out or targeted, or I don't want anybody to feel bad because they need a resource that maybe somebody else doesn't need. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
life. So,
Totally, but overall, I would say it's a positive thing that we're thinking about these things and we're trying to make church a more inclusive place. So I think overall it's positive. We just need to proceed with caution.
exactly. Exactly. And the other thing that I was going to ask you if you did over there, just this week, at least this is our stake, we do what's called an over 60 friendship lunch. And so they do it during the daytime. And if you are a sister over 60 in our stake, you are invited to attend this friendship lunch. And they have it once a month, and each ward rotates providing the lunch and the speaker and everything once a month. And this month was our ward, and it's just fun to watch these sisters come together. And we usually have about 50 sisters come, and they just sit and chat themselves up, and it's fun to see that friendship. So do you guys do anything like that over there?
I mean, I'm not in that demographic, so maybe I'm
That's
not
true.
tuned in to to whether or not they're doing it. So you should probably ask someone who's double my age, but I don't think so. Not that I know of. However, we did this past month have a Stake Relief Society conversation forum where we brought sisters together to have a conversation about a gospel topic, and there's going to be four this year in my stake. So I guess
I
if we're thinking about
love
getting the
that.
sisters together, yeah, yeah. So we've done that. That's nice, and it went well.
Okay. So repeat that again. A Relief Society conversation forum.
Yes, it's correct. It's an opportunity for us to do that counselling. You know, we do that counselling at
Yes.
the beginning of Relief Society that some wards kind of do more successfully than others. So it's just an extended opportunity to do that. It's an hour long. It was on Zoom because a lot of people don't like to travel at night over
Hmm.
here because it's really dark and they're worried about driving safely, so we just did it
Yes.
online. And yeah, I think we had 40 people come, which for our stake
Wow.
is good. It's really good. So yeah, there was some good participation.
So what was your topic of discussion this time?
So we went with how can we follow Jesus Christ in this challenging modern world? And then we asked for suggestions on things that we can talk about in the future as well from people. So I think the next one is going to be just before General Conference, and we'll come together and we'll talk about how we can make that a meaningful experience. Because I know a lot of people struggle with General Conference and struggle to stay fully involved in it or struggle to see how the messages apply to them, etc. So yeah, that's what we're doing over in our little corner of the world.
I love it. I think that is a fantastic idea. That is great. All right. Well, since we're here for some news stories, shall we do some news stories?
Yeah, let's jump into the news for this week.
Okay, so our first story this week is the Sunday School General Presidency launches worldwide social media accounts, which I kind of loved this because sometimes I don't know about your ward. We have this Sunday School presidency, and I really don't know much of what they do other than make sure all the classrooms have teachers. And sometimes I think that that is true the on the church level as well, especially because, we have these come follow me manuals that are used across the board, where in the past you probably would have had the general Sunday school presidency putting together a Sunday school curriculum, but it's been several years since they've had to do that. So it kind of begs the question of, oh, what do they do? Well, we learned this week what they are doing. They are launching on social media on Facebook and Instagram some new tools. The Facebook one is called Gospel Learning and Teaching. And then on Instagram, it's at Gospel Learning on Teaching. And so Gospel Learning and Teaching on Instagram. And so their mission or their goal of this is to help with personal gospel study and help improve teaching at home and in other callings. And it says, I haven't looked at the pages. It says the pages will feature practical tips and support for both individual and family gospel study. So I kind of liked that. I thought I'm going to have to go follow them on Facebook and Instagram so they will integrate into my algorithm, because I would assume that what they are putting out on a weekly basis is probably complementary to what we're studying and Come Follow Me that week. And sometimes it's nice, as you're scrolling through social media, to go, oh, and pause on something that that supplements your personal gospel study. And I get the opinion that that's what this is supposed to be for.
Yeah, so I did take a quick look at the page and right, buckle up. Are we ready for my unpopular opinion of the week?
Please share
Are
your
we ready?
unpopular
So
opinion since you've
here we
looked at the
go.
page and I haven't.
Yeah, I've looked at the page and I have to be 100% transparent that I really did not like it. So
Okay.
just let me take a moment to explain. So I am all for integrating you know, church leaders with social media. That is a good thing, right? And it's a great thing that they want to help us with our gospel study whilst we're on those social media platforms. All of that is really, really good. However, I think the execution is really, really poor. And I don't think they're going to get the level of engagement that they could be getting. So I just think they've kind of missed the mark. I think it's a bit dry. I think it's a bit, I just don't think it's catching enough. I feel like Instagram, those kind of things now, they're really fast paced with these different videos. And, if you're not fast paced yourself, you're just going to get lost. And that was very much the sense that I got from those videos. So I think the first one that I watched, it was the Sunday school presidency and the like, do we still call them thumbnails? The picture that comes
Yeah.
up. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Yes, what a thumbnail.
Yes.
I'm doubting myself. But anyway. And it was just a picture of the three of them in a suit. And I thought, you know what? If I were a young person, not that I'm particularly old, but if I were an even younger person who were scrolling through my social media feed, would I stop to listen to these three gentlemen? Probably not. So I
Mm.
see a lot of companies now, not that the church is a company, but sometimes it
Oh, it
acts like
is.
one.
Yes.
Yeah, I see a lot of companies now jumping on social media trends, that kind of thing, and making their content appealing in an already very saturated market. And I just don't see the church doing that. I think that what they want to do is really good and really powerful, but I think the execution of it hasn't quite worked. So that's as controversial as I'm going to be today, I think.
Oh,
But I could
okay.
be proven wrong.
Well, no, I appreciate that point because, like I said, based on the article, and I had not had a chance to actually look at the social media feed. Based on the article, I thought, oh, this sounds fantastic. But it is interesting that you didn't feel that it translated that well into the feed. And maybe this is going to be a situation where the church has some learning and growing, because I've seen media productions that the church has done that are absolutely fantastic, engaging, and wonderful. And maybe this is just some growing pains. And maybe it'll get better with time.
So
Who knows?
I think so. And actually, just looking at all of the thumbnails, and I guess if you're watching on YouTube, I can hold it up to the screen. Every single thumbnail, so they've got about, oh, you can't quite see it. There are 11 thumbnails, and all of the ones that have pictures of people in them, every single one is a man. There's not a single woman that features as well, which hits wrong for me. So
Yes.
I just think, yeah, you phrased it really nicely. Some learning and growing to do, definitely, for sure, for sure.
Okay. Well, we will follow this and see if it improves with time.
We
All
shall
right.
indeed. We shall indeed.
So our next story, this is very American centric. Sorry, I don't know if you've heard of this big party we're having on Sunday called the Super Bowl, where
I mean, I've heard of it.
where the football teams in the American sense of football, not the British sense of football or the English sense of football, where we play with the round, or not the round, the brown ball that has points on the ends. I don't know what you call that in terms of a sphere. Anyway, so two teams that are playing are the Philadelphia Eagles and of course the Kansas City Chiefs. This is the Chiefs' fifth appearance in the past 6 years. They have won the past two Super Bowls. But what is unique about the Chiefs is their coach is a gentleman by the name of Andy Reid, who is a member of the church. And as is consistent with all of these big sporting events, 2 or 3 days before the event, everybody has to go and make an appearance in front of the media, and they have a press conference, and the media asks all sorts of, ridiculous questions, some football related, some not. So, Brother Reed is sitting there in his press conference, and he is asked what his favorite book trilogy is, and this was his response. He says, because he's very dry, very even keel. He grew up under the Lavelle Edwards umbrella of football at BYU, and he reminds me a lot of Lavelle. You don't see a lot of emotion, just very even keel. And so he says, "How about the Bible, the Book of Mormon, Pearl of Great Price? I like them all." And then he got a big smile across his face. So I'm sure the reporters were like, "Okay, we've heard of the Bible. We've heard of the Book of Mormon." I'm sure they were going, "What is the pearl of great price?" That might have that
My
might have
exact
made
thought.
some head scratching, but good
Yeah,
for Brother Reed.
definitely. I thought, well, I had two thoughts. The first one is that I thought everyone is going to be so confused. What is the Pearl of Great Price? The other
Yes,
thing is, I love it that he just completely missed out the Doctrine and Covenants, which is the Come Follow
yes,
Me study for
yes,
this year. So it just made me laugh. I guess he was kind of put on the spot, wasn't he? So,
yeah, he was.
he shouldn't be expected to give a perfect answer. But yeah, that is actually really funny because when I was looking into the church, obviously I had heard of the Book of Mormon because everybody has. Um, I guess because we were called Mormons or because the Book of Mormon musical. And I remember when someone said to me that there was more scripture, that there was the Doctrine and Covenants and the Pearl of Great Price. I was like, what? How have I not heard of this? How have I
Yes,
not heard of this? But I hadn't. So I guess he's doing the US population a favor by introducing them to the Pearl of Great Price. Maybe they'll get
exactly.
some hits and some interest on it. Who knows?
Exactly. So we will wish him well in his endeavor this Sunday to have a three-peat for the Kansas City Chiefs. He has also announced that he will not be quitting coaching anytime soon. I think he is committed to stay through like 2027. So he's got some more time on his contract, and regardless of what happens, he indicated, "I'm coming back for the 2025-2026 football season." So we will be seeing more of Brother Reed.
Yeah, and I mean he's obviously doing something right if they've already did they win while he was coaching them?
Yes.
Previously when you said they had,
Yes.
yeah, so
Yes.
he's
At least the last two. I think all. I'm not really sure. I'm not a super big football fan. I definitely know the last two Super Bowls that they have won, he has been at the helm. I think he was at the helm for the previous ones as well. But I don't want to
uh-huh.
go on record as saying that because I don't know for sure. Because again, football isn't my thing. I have a periphery knowledge of it. Now, if you want to talk Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, I can talk your ear off all day long with every detail about the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. So, but we won't go there for right now.
Yeah. No, it sounds good. And good luck to the Chiefs then. I guess we're rooting for the Chiefs, are we? Because we've got a
Exactly.
fellow
Exactly.
Latter-day Saint, yeah, with them.
Okay. All right. Our next story is Elder Duncan. So, Kevin R. Duncan spoke at BYU this week. And I should say BYU Provo, or as I like to call it, Big BYU. They have weekly devotionals. And he drew the short straw this week to go speak at the weekly devotional. But I absolutely loved his message and the story that he shared. The message that he said to the kids is he said, as you prepare for miracles that will surely come, and at the same time face challenges that will surely test you to the core, the power of Jesus Christ will sustain you as you steadfastly put your trust in him. And I know from personal experience, seeing the miracles in my life, as well as having the challenges that have tested me to the core, it really was the sustaining power of Jesus Christ that helped me. And then he goes on to share this very personal story. He had gotten married. He had this little baby girl who was 7 months old, and his wife was killed in an automobile accident, which was tragic. But shortly before
Wow.
his wife was killed in this automobile accident, he had done kind of an impromptu whirlwind trip with a friend of his to help him move to California. And during this particular trip, his friend was very anxious about his wife. His friend's wife was pregnant and just very anxious about it. And through the miles of travel, the two of them began to discuss what they would do if their wives passed away and how their faith in Jesus Christ and their understanding of God's plan would provide them strength. And so here he is thinking he's providing solace and comfort to this friend. And then days later, his wife is killed, and he realizes that through the Lord's infinite kindness and understanding, he had been preparing Elder Duncan in that conversation with his friend, and he considered that conversation to be a tender mercy from a loving father. And then he goes on to share a couple of other stories, and he says about the lessons that he's learned. I'll never forget Christ's grace isn't about being perfect. It's about trusting in and relying on him when you are at your lowest and letting his strength carry you through. I wasn't a perfect dad. I didn't need to be. Christ's strength was enough for both of us. He was referencing his 1-year-old daughter who ended up getting sick with pneumonia, very seriously sick, and he thought he was going to lose her. And so he talks about miraculously how he healed his daughter and rescued him. And I really liked that message that he was sharing with the BYU students, because every single one of them, I mean, I think of myself at, 20, 21, 22 years old when I was attending BYU. If anyone had told me, the trials that would lie ahead of me in my life, I would have said, what crazy novel are you reading? I don't think so. I wouldn't have believed it. And same thing with these kids sitting there in this devotional. They have no idea what is waiting for them and how they will learn and how they will grow through those experiences.
So true. And as you were saying all of that, I thought, oh, I would have really liked to have been in the audience for that talk because I think it would have been really powerful.
Yeah.
And it made me think that those students, they kind of get like a little bit of general conference every week, don't
Yeah,
they? Because they get
they
these
do.
amazing speakers coming and speaking to them. So they're pretty lucky. And it reminded me of an experience I had back in 2016. I was actually on the campus of BYU Hawaii. So my husband and I were moving from Australia to England, and we decided to stop in Hawaii and also in Canada on our way back to the UK, which was really fun. And while we were there, we had the opportunity, we got invited to go to one of these, what are they? Devotionals. Yeah, BYU
Yes.
devotionals. And I said no because I didn't know what it was at that point. At that point, I'd only been a member of the church 2 years. I hadn't really tapped into what it was. And honestly, I have regretted it ever since because I don't know who spoke. I suppose I should look it up, shouldn't I? I should track back when I was there and look
And
up who
you
spoke that day.
and you
And
could find the talk.
yeah, I should. Actually, I'm going to do that now. I'm going to do that. I'm going to listen to the talk that I should have gone to however many 9 years ago because I've regretted it. So that was my one opportunity and I didn't take it up. I should have. Never mind.
And that is a life lesson that I try and instill in my kids. You generally regret the things you didn't do more so than you regret the things you did. So, uh,
Ooh, I like that. We're
yeah,
getting very deep here, Tiffany. Very
we
deep.
are we are getting very deep here. But no, when and a lot of times when I'm faced with opportunities or decisions now, I will frame it in that. I will look at it in terms of, if I don't do this, well, I regret this. Could this be something that is a potential for regrets? Because I'm like, I don't want to have regrets. And
I
so,
love that. I love that. You've definitely opened up a little bit of my brain, and yeah, interesting. I hadn't thought about that. The Gospel according to Tiffany, we should call
no, no, we don't need the gospel according to Tiffany. Trust me.
it.
Maybe life experience according to Tiffany, because Tiffany
Yeah.
has had way too much life experience, but
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
neither in here nor there.
Well, should we move on?
Yes, let's move on. So, we're next going to talk about Elder Suarez. He attended a religious freedom summit in Washington, D.C. Now, this religious freedom summit has been going on in Washington, D.C. for a couple of days earlier this week, and there were lots of general authorities who have attended this summit, and it was kind of a really big deal. There has been a lot of coverage on it on the Church News website. I had to kind of pick and choose which stories, because we could have spent the whole episode talking about it. But I picked Elder Suarez because his talk kind of encompasses everything that they were discussing at this summit. So, this summit was made up of different religious leaders from around the country and around the world. And the message that Elder Suarez uh, was saying at this conference is, he said, protecting human rights is crucial for preserving peace. As religious, government, and community leaders, it is our responsibility to strongly support the protection of human rights worldwide. And he goes on to talk about, at any discussion of how to treat one another must begin with human dignity. And he defined human dignity as the foundation of all human rights. And then this was my favorite quote. He said, societies thrive when both law and culture recognize, respect, and protect the inherent value of every person. Dignity is a universal birthright. Everyone has dignity simply by being human, regardless of religion, race, gender, and nationality. While cultural and religious differences enrich our shared humanity, they do not affect our dignity. And he says those universal human rights are life, liberty, security, equal protection under the law, freedom of thought, speech, and religion. And
Wow.
super, super powerful. And it is hard for me to not contrast what he is saying in this speech with what we see is currently happening in government in the United States of America.
Yeah. Yeah, that was where my wow came from. I mean, I can't speak too much about it. I'm a spectator in all of this,
Yes.
and that is a very different message to the message that I am seeing displayed in the world news right now that's coming from the
e-
United States. Let's just say that.
Exactly. And every single message that I read that came out of this particular summit, International Religious Freedom Summit, said that very same thing. We need to protect human rights, and that is crucial for protecting peace, and that is crucial for everybody having religious freedom, and that religious freedom is just like what we talk about in our articles of faith. We believe in being able to worship as how we want to worship, and we believe that everybody else should have the right to worship as they want to worship. And so, anyway, yeah, it is. It's very different than, like, just like what you said, what's being played out in the news. And it makes me wonder, and again, maybe they don't even spend much time talking about this, when the Quorum of the 12 has their weekly meetings, w- is is there a discussion of what is going on in America, or we are just such a worldwide church? They're like, yeah, we can't control that. Let's focus on how we can serve people, serve our members, and serve the world community, especially those that are in very difficult circumstances where their human dignity right now is not being respected by the government in the country in which they live in.
Yeah, I mean, I could see the conversation, I could see it happening either way. I would hope that they are discussing what's happening in the US at the moment, because I think if they're not, they're pretty much the only people who aren't discussing it. So I'd be surprised. But on the other hand, you're right, it is a global church, so maybe they're
Yeah,
focusing their efforts globally. We can only speculate. We are not a fly on the wall in their weekly meetings,
it's
but it would be
very true.
interesting to be, right?
Yes, yes, it would be.
That would be very interesting indeed.
Exactly. So, speaking of which, because of just everything I have been seeing in the news in the last 2 weeks here in America, I found some international news that I wanted to cover with you because, again, hearkening back to your host, your roots as an international host, but just because there were members in other countries just doing amazing things, and it just made me feel good to read about people helping other people and
Hmm.
and acknowledging their dignity as human beings. And so it helped me with some perspective. So the first one that we have a story out of Peru. And I happen to really have a soft spot in my heart for Peru. My father served his mission in Peru. And several I know, and he served his mission. He went there in 1958, so a very long time ago. He was there from 58 to 6, or maybe he started in 59. He was there from 59 through 61. He served a 2.5 year mission because at the time they did not have the MTC. And so if you went on a foreign speaking mission, they threw an extra 6 months on your mission to learn the language. So
Really?
he's
Wow.
real. I know. So he spent the first 6 months of his mission really kind of out in the field, and then after that, they transferred him to the office, and he did a lot of it. He was the assistant to the president, and did a lot of administrative stuff. Several years ago, I was going through. I just had a lot of challenges in my life, and life was just really hard for me, and so I took his old mission letters out. Gosh, I'm probably going to cry. I took his old mission letters out and I read these mission letters. And not only did I read these mission letters, I scanned them into my computer and I put them up on memories, on Family Search on memories, so that everybody in my family could see these mission letters. And it was so fascinating to read what he wrote home to my grandmother about the church in Peru and how the church was growing. And they helped build a building there because while he was there, they formed the first ward in Peru. They had in Lima. They had just had branches until then. And I put some of these pictures from his mission up on his memory page. And it really helped. I mean, I don't, like I said, I was going through this super difficult time, and it just really, um, I can't even explain how it helped me, but just how it just made me feel to read these letters and just connect with my father who had passed away through his mission, and just helped diminish the pain of this really challenging time I was going through in my life. And so that is kind of my testimony of family search and memories, and how connecting with our ancestors can really provide for us such a salve when we are going through really difficult, painful times. Anyway, so that's why I have a soft spot in my heart for in Peru. And this article talks about that. The first stake. So, about 15 years after the first ward was created in Peru in 1974, they were finally able to create the first stake. And ever since then, these members in Peru have annually gotten together and done days of service for the community. And they do everything from park cleanups to blood donations to hospital support and they have about 4,400 church members who go out and perform this service. And so, one of the things that they were talking about is they had volunteers who dedicated their time to clean up a park and improving the public space for fellow community members. And I just like that. And they have been doing this for years in Peru. This is an annual thing that they do. And I love that those saints give back to their community in that way because
Yeah,
it's a very Catholic country.
that's true. I hadn't necessarily thought of that angle that it's a Catholic country, but it's nice to get a little bit of feel good news. I'm not going to lie. And really interesting to hear your personal connection to Peru and how that's helped you in your life. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. When I was reading this story, I in my mind all I could see was this picture of my dad in front of this church building that all of the members in Peru in the 60s had pulled together to construct so that they could have this building for their ward, and how these members were really pioneers. And that's what they talk about in this article is they're pioneers who built the church up in Peru. And to just have that connection, to know that my dad was while a foreign citizen there, helping and supporting those pioneers to build the church up in Peru.
Yeah, super nice. Super nice.
So our next one is mothers in Guatemala learn better nutrition for their babies. This goes along with Sister Camille Johnson, who is our Relief Society General President. She has had an initiative, a global initiative for women and children, and she says, the greatest possible impact we can have is putting money into efforts that particularly bless the lives of women and children under 5 years old. And so, what they have done is the church has a program that is focused on nutrition, because in many of these less developed countries, nutrition is a very big deal. And these women do not have sufficient nutrition. They then do not have sufficient nutrition for their babies. And so the church is helping provide some of those resources, not only in terms of nutrition, but in terms of education for these women. And the article talks about this one particular sister. Her name was Sebastian Tina George, and her baby was diagnosed with chronic malnutrition at 1 month old. And she was able to, through the help that she received from the church, she was able to make changes to better her health and hygiene practices, prepare supplements such as it's called in caparina, which is a hot corn-based cereal infused with vitamins, which help boost her own strength and her breast milk for her baby. And her baby was able to ultimately get out of that chronic malnutrition. And I just loved it.
Yeah, I took a look at the article myself, and the bit which stuck out to me, I absolutely love what President Johnson and her team are doing. And it says this member focused nutrition effort currently available in Central America. The
Hmm.
story that you spoke about is from Guatemala, right?
Yes.
Africa and the Philippines is where it's currently available, but then they said availability in other parts of Asia coming soon. So they're really trying to go where they can go with this, which I think is brilliant.
Love it. And I love that the church, because I pulled this from the church news, is doing these follow-up stories on these initiatives that the Relief Society presidency has put into place, so that we can see how these are impacting members. And it reminds us again, we are a global church. We are not just in North America or over in Eastern or in Western Europe where you are. We are a global church, and we have members all throughout the world. And in order to continue to build their testimonies, as they say, you can't be spiritually fed until you've been physically fed. If you are physically hungry, you cannot feel the spirit. But if you are physically satisfied, then the spirit can come in. And I love that those efforts are helping that.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree.
And then our last really good feel one is church member service prompts social inclusion and accessibility in two South African countries, or South American countries, excuse me. So this focuses on Argentina and then back to Lima, Peru as well. And again, these are saints who are doing this. The first one out of Argentina, what the saints had done is they had gone to a beach. There is a beach that is accessible for people with physical disabilities, and they had gone there and they had done a lot of repair work to make sure that there were floatable wheelchairs and lifeguards trained to assist individuals with disabilities. They created a ramp and repaired a ramp and just made this beach a really nice place for people with disabilities that they can go and enjoy the beach and enjoy the water. And I really liked that.
Yeah, the photos make it. Yeah, it comes to life. It looks really nice when you look at the photos when you click on the link. So that's a really nice thing that they're doing there. Do they do lots of community stuff in your area? Because in our area last year we had this big service project at a farm where we took over 100 people and they did all the planting for the farm and kind of tidied it up. It was a really successful, nice thing that we did in our stake. Does your stake do anything like that?
We do. I mean, there are obviously in the area that I live in is there is a lot of wealth. There is also a lot of need as well, and so ours seem to be more focused not on bigger efforts like that, but more on smaller efforts in terms of, for example, we have a community food bank in my town. And so every month, a different ward is in charge of helping provide food for that community food bank. And so you go around, to your neighbors and to the people in your ward and say, these are the things the food bank needs. Could you donate some food to the food bank? And so that every month, a ward in our stake is making sure that the food bank gets some donations, other than just at the holidays when people really think about food bank donations. So that's one thing I know that occurs on a daily basis. I was actually just having a conversation with our Relief Society president yesterday, and we've got our Relief Society birthday dinner coming up, and we are considering, rather than doing a dinner to honor the Relief Society's birthday, that we might try and do a service project as a ward for our Relief Society birthday dinner. So we're gonna be looking in that direction towards a service project to honor Relief Society and the motto of Relief Society, which is, as you know, charity never faileth.
Yeah, that sounds really nice. But you're not in charge of activities anymore, are you? Because you're the secretary. Is that right?
Well, I'm the secretary, but I'm still in charge of activities.
Ah. So you're spearheading the whole thing. Well, I'm interested to find out what you do and what happens.
Yes,
That sounds really nice. Yeah,
yes.
yeah. We
I
did something similar for the Relief Society birthday. I think back in 2022, where we met and we did a sort of multi-ward thing. I think we had 2 or 3 wards who met together and we made hygiene kits for a local women's
Yes,
refuge, which was really lovely. So something like that. It just kind of makes you feel good, and it's for a good cause, isn't it? So it's always a nice thing to
exactly.
do. Yeah, yeah.
And we did do that a couple years ago. I can't remember if it was for our Relief Society birthday dinner or for something else. We have a women's and children's shelter, and we had put together hygiene kits for the women's and children's shelter, and they were so appreciative. So,
Yeah.
all right. Shall we move on to a couple of others? We're getting short on time, so I'll tell you what. I'm going to pull just a couple things out of order, to make sure that I cover one story that I really want your thoughts on, and maybe this will probably
Ooh,
be our
interesting.
last story. So this was the story that I had. It was entitled "How to Conduct, Prepare for, and Make the Most of Our Ministering Interviews." Relief Society General Advisory Council shares insights on helping others feel the love of Jesus Christ. And At the beginning of the show, you had mentioned that you don't particularly care for the word interview associated with ministering. So I thought, maybe we should just have a discussion on ministering interviews. The article says that, the purpose of the interview is to counsel about the strengths, needs, and challenges of assigned individuals and families, discuss ways to help persons prepare to receive ordinances if needed, consider how the Elders Quorum Relief Society, Ward Council, and others might help. Minister to ministering brothers and sisters, show love and appreciation, teach and encourage them, help them to grow in their capacity to receive and act upon the revelation in their service. Um, those are what kind of the purpose of the ministering interview is. I don't know about
So
you.
you go first, then I'll give my thoughts. You go first. I'm going to put you on the
Ev-
spot. Give your thoughts,
ev-
Tiffany.
every time it rolls around and I hear the word ministering interview, you want to know what I see in big capital letters flash across the screen of my mind? Just take a guess.
I have no idea.
Guilt in big capital letters. Guilt. And it's not that I'm not ministering to my sisters. It's I feel guilty because I'm like I could always do more and do better. And I hate that. And I know that that's kind of a me thing I need to overcome, but I think that there are a lot of sisters who are like, I don't want to go to a ministering interview. I don't want to participate in a ministering interview because I walk away just feeling like I suck at ministering. And 4 times a year, I have to tell my Relief Society presidency I suck at ministering. So I'm just not going to participate.
Yeah. I mean, okay, where to even begin with this? There is so much to unpack. Firstly, I
Yes.
think that your experience is a global phenomenon of extreme guilt that we all feel when we feel like we haven't done enough, etc. I think that at its core, ministering is great, right? It's needed and it helps to kind of care for everyone and scoop everyone up, and it's a friendship, isn't it? It's kind of an orchestrated friendship. However, I think the ministering interview concept needs a bit of tweaking. I think we need to just get rid of the metrics completely and just trust that we are
Yeah.
doing our ministering, that people's needs are getting met, that if people's needs aren't getting met, that they're telling someone or someone is looking out for them or that we're guided towards them in some way. I just feel like this concept of sitting down with a Ward Relief Society presidency and reporting and talking about the sisters, it I think on paper it works, but in practice it probably doesn't, because I don't know that there's a single person that I've spoken to who has said, "Oh yeah, like that's really going well for us," or "That's really working for us." I just think it's one of those things that doesn't quite work, and it probably needs to go through another iteration until it becomes a little bit more successful. So I joined the church in 2014. So I had 4 years of that visiting teaching model before it was retired and before it became ministering. And I think that was a positive leap,
Okay.
because I think what they were getting at is that we were making it less formal. Ministering can happen anywhere. It can happen in a lot of different ways, etc. But this ministering interview concept still seems quite rigid to me. It doesn't feel very productive. I don't think it necessarily needs to happen formally. I just think if there's a need, then we need to just be telling the Relief Society presidency about that need if that person needs help.
Yeah.
I struggle a lot with church being really formal. I increasingly I've got my latest thing is that I don't really like referring to people by their last names. I want to call them their first name. So I'm calling my bishop by his first name, my stake president by his first name, because I truly believe that if Jesus Christ were to come up to me, he wouldn't say Sister Travers. I hope he wouldn't. I hope he would say Georgia, Georgia,
Yeah.
I know you, I see you,
Yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's just so much with church that just seems overly formal because of tradition rather than because of any good reason. So I think ministering interviews is maybe one of those kind of hang-ups from the visiting teaching,
Yeah.
home teaching days, and I think maybe we just need to scrap it and move on, because I don't think it's effective. But yeah,
Well, and
that's my thought.
here's another interesting idea on ministering interviews that last time I was interviewed on a ministering interview, the focus was not on who I ministered to. The focus was on me. And, what are your needs and how can we help you? Is there anything we can, do for you? Are there things you would like to be aware of? And then at the very end it was like, and the sisters that you minister to, is there anything about them that you would like us to know? Sort of a thing. And so it shifted the focus more about me, which I appreciated because then I didn't walk away from it feeling guilty. But at the same time, just in that quick little, 10-minute interview, I'm probably not about to go deep. And so it's probably going to be very on the surface. And I don't know how many sisters in that time period would go deep. So I don't know. It is a real struggle to make ministering interviews an effective tool that you can walk away from ministering interviews and feel the love of the Savior. And I don't know what that looks like yet. I'm still on a quest to figure that out.
As am I. And listeners, if you have any experience with ministering interviews being a really positive experience, please can you email in contact at thisweekinmormons.com and let us know, because we are flailing in the dark here and we do not have a positive experience at the moment. So let us know your thoughts if it's been a positive experience for you.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear it.
Well, and I do have to say, the last one where the focus was on me, definitely different. Loved it. But again, I mean, I think it's a process of learning and tweaking, and I would love to know what what experiences the listeners have had. And so yes, please write in and let us know, because we would like to share those on air, because I think that just like what you talked about at the beginning of the show, where your stake came together as a relief society and had this discussion, that is really very much how we learn, by discussing things with others and hearing what others have to say and hearing others' perspective, that is so valuable in teaching and learning. And I love the shift that the gospel has done in the last 10 years, away from getting up and somebody lectures and you sit and listen, to lessons and everything being super interactive, where you're sharing and participating with each other. Because I know for me, that's where I learn, and that's how I feel the Spirit, so much so than somebody just lecturing at me.
Totally. And that interview concept is very much, you are asked a question and you reply. Whereas I think if we called it a conversation or even a ministering counsel, I know counsel is a
Oh, I
huge
like
buzzword for the
that.
church at the moment. Yeah, a ministering counseling together, anything like that. I think it just softens it. I think it just makes it more casual. If it's more casual, there's less guilt around it, which we need to get rid of as well. So yeah, I'm interested to see where it goes over the next few years. Maybe they will tweak it. Who knows?
Who knows? And like I said, maybe we just start sharing ideas with each other. And the beauty of social media is you can put those ideas out and spread them in a way that people around the world can go, "Oh, I like that. That's a fantastic idea. I want to try incorporating that in my ward or my stake or my individual circumstance." So,
Yeah.
all right, Georgia, before we move on to favorite things, sadly, I have one Mormon behaving badly. We
No, we've had such a good run of
we have
Mormons
had
behaving.
a good run, but this one is an ew ick. This happened this week. There was a he was formerly a bishop, was charged with forcible sodomy first degree and 2 counts of forcible sexual abuse second degree, that occurred when he was a bishop. This was something that allegedly occurred in 2006, and not really sure why it took a number of years before. Well, I know why it took a number of years before the victim came forward, because I've worked with enough victims in the course of my lifetime. but something that obviously came forward, and now he is charged. And I'm not going to go into the details of what happened. If you're that curious, you can read it in the article that it's linked to. Uh, I guess the only positive take of this is something that's almost 20 years old, and I hope that we're doing better these days than we did 20 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, if when you read the details of what actually happened, it was a huge abuse of power.
Yeah,
If what is alleged is
it's
true,
true. And we don't know.
yeah, we don't know at this stage. It's only speculation. But if it is true, it's a horrible abuse of power,
Yeah,
religious power, and I hope we can do away with those things completely in 2025. We're nearly 20 years on now. Hopefully, we have learnt lessons from things that happened in the past.
exactly. Well, and this was during a youth interview. And I have to say, one of the changes that I really like is the fact that for youth interviews, parents can come in. And a lot of bishops will actually encourage parents to come in and say, please come in. And again, adds a layer of protection for everyone.
Exactly, exactly. I mean, in my teaching, the school that I worked in had a policy which said, no closed doors
Yeah,
at all. Full stop.
yeah,
If you are alone with a student, you keep the door open. Ideally, you have someone else in the room. If that's not possible, you make sure you're standing in the doorway,
yeah,
essentially, to just protect everyone involved. So,
exactly.
it's good that the church is also moving in that direction.
Agreed. All right. Well, Georgia, shall we move on to favorite things? Do you have a favorite thing you want to share with me tonight? I loved the
I
last favorite thing. And
Oh, my last favorite thing was squash, wasn't
it
it? The
was, and then
drink.
you so kindly mailed me squash along with delicious British chocolate, milk chocolate, my favorite. Loved it. So I'm so grateful. So, yes, what are you going to share with us tonight?
So tonight, speaking of delicious English chocolate, so delicious that I've already consumed half of the bar, is a crunchy bar. Do you have these in the United States?
I have never heard of a crunchy bar. Tell me what's in it, and maybe we have something similar with a different name.
Okay, so it's absolutely delicious. It is honeycomb with a milk chocolate coating around it. And yeah, it was so delicious that I already ate half of it before we started recording tonight because I just couldn't help it. So I it's one of my favorite chocolate bars. I encourage everyone to try a crunchy at some point in their life. If you visit the UK, you can buy them in pretty much any corner shop, any petrol station, anywhere. Crunchies are
Okay.
a staple for the UK.
Love it. Okay, well mine tonight ties into this right here. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see I'm holding up my McDonald's French fry container as well as my beverage, my Diet Coke beverage from McDonald's. And I will tell you why this is one of my favorite things. So, as I indicated earlier, it was a snowy day. I encouraged my 20-year-old son to go and shovel the neighbor's driveway, and he did. And he's like, "Mom, could you take me to McDonald's? I want the burger deal." And I was like, "Yes, I will take you to McDonald's for your efforts." So I don't know about the UK, but in Idaho, or at least in the United States, McDonald's has an app and they have amazing deals on the app. And I love to order through the app. So the deal that I always get is you can get any size French fry. And so I picked a large because, yes, this was lunch today. Let's call it the lunch of champions. You could get any size French fry for free when you spend $1 or more. And guess what? My very large Diet Coke here cost me $1. So for $1, I got a large Diet Coke and I got a large French fry from McDonald's. Best screaming deal around. That is an app exclusive deal, and they always just have really good deals on their app. And so, we hardly ever, whenever we go, if I want any sort of a snack or anything like that, I always go on the app and order from the app. So I would encourage everybody to get the McDonald's app if you so choose to participate in McDonald's food, which again, not the most healthy option. I don't eat it every day, but when I do, I'm getting the French fry for $1 with my drink.
Yeah, I have two comments. The first one is we also have the app and it
Uh-huh.
also has amazing deals. However, nothing like a $1 Diet Coke and French fries. I can't
I know.
believe that. We are getting fleeced over here. So our large Coke and large over here is 500 milliliters, which is your small or something like
Yeah.
that, is over £2. So I can't believe that you get that for $1. This is why
Wow.
we've got so many, American Mormons drinking all these drinks because they're just so
E-
cheap and so big.
Exactly. You could go through the drive-through at McDonald's and get I would assume this is probably, I don't know how, let's see if I can read here how many ounces in the large. I mean, it's easily has to be, I don't know if it's 32 ounces. It probably is 32 ounces for a large Diet Coke. So yes, I am so sorry that your app, while it has amazing deals, does not have the same value that the American app has. That's probably why you all are a bit healthier than us as Americans, because for $1, we're eating our large French fries and drinking our large Coke. Although mine is a Diet Coke, so at least I don't have calories from the beverage. I only have calories from the fries.
No calories, but you do have all the chemicals. So
I do have all the and I freely admit that, and this is what I have to say about chemicals. I was a child in the 70s. There was no every preservative known to man came about in the 70s. I have consumed every preservative and every chemical known to man as in the 70s. I figure if the 70s and 80s didn't kill me, then Diet Coke, bring it on.
bring it on. I love that. Let's end on that note today. Let's end on high.
Okay. Well, Georgia, thank you so much for joining me. As always, this has been delightful. I appreciate you coming on. I'm sure our listeners will be so excited to hear you again, and I will invite you back another time.
Yeah, thank you. I can't wait to come back and to record with you again. This has been really fun, Tiffany. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.